There is someone listening to these words today who has quietly asked the same question over and over. God, how much longer? Maybe you've prayed until your voice grew tired. Maybe you've waited until your hope began to fade. Maybe you've watched other people receive the very blessing you've been asking for, while your own life feels frozen in place. And if you're honest, you're beginning to wonder whether heaven has forgotten your name. But before you allow another anxious thought to take root, before you decide that your dream will never happen, before you give up on what God placed inside your heart, listen carefully, because this message may completely change the way you see every delay you've experienced. What if the closed door wasn't rejection? What if the silence wasn't abandonment? What if every unanswered prayer was actually leading you towards something far greater than you ever imagined? There is a truth many people never discover. They assume God's silence means God isn't working. But heaven often does its greatest work where human eyes see absolutely nothing. A seed buried underground looks lifeless, yet beneath the surface, an invisible miracle is taking place. Roots are growing. Life is forming. Preparation is happening. And the day finally comes when what was hidden suddenly breaks through the ground for everyone to see. Your life may be in that hidden season right now. Not forgotten, not abandoned, not overlooked. Prepared. Today's message is for every person who feels tired of waiting. For everyone wondering why life isn't moving faster. For those whose hearts have grown weary after months or even years of believing. Stay with me until the very end, because before this message is finished, you'll discover why your waiting has purpose, why your delay is not your defeat, and why what God has prepared for you will arrive at exactly the right moment, not 1 second early and never 1 second late. Today, hear these words deep within your spirit. Waiting is one of the greatest tests of faith because it requires you to believe that God is working even when there is no visible evidence. Anyone can trust when prayers are answered immediately, when doors open without resistance, and when life unfolds exactly as planned. But true faith is revealed in the quiet seasons when nothing appears to be changing and every day feels like a repetition of the last. It is during these moments that many people become discouraged. They begin to question God's promises, compare their journey with others, and wonder whether they have somehow missed His will. Yet what feels like an interruption in your life may actually be one of the most important chapters of your spiritual growth. Waiting is not empty time. It is sacred time. It is a season in which God shapes your heart before He places greater responsibilities into your hands. Growth rarely happens during moments of comfort. It is often the challenges, delays, and unanswered questions that produce the deepest transformation within us. Consider how a tree grows. The strongest part of the tree is not the branches everyone admires, but the roots hidden beneath the ground. Before the tree reaches upward, it first grows downward. Those unseen roots anchor it against storms, provide nourishment during dry seasons, and give it the strength to support future growth. In much the same way, God often develops your spiritual roots before He allows your life to expand outward. While you are waiting for external change, He is producing internal strength that will sustain you for years to come. It is easy to ask God to change our circumstances, but He is often more interested in changing us. We pray for bigger opportunities, yet He develops humility. We pray for greater influence, yet He teaches patience. We ask for abundance, yet He trains us to be faithful with what we already have. We ask Him to remove every obstacle. But sometimes those very obstacles become the tools He uses to refine our character. If every prayer were answered instantly, many of us would receive blessings before we had the wisdom to manage them or the maturity to appreciate them. God's preparation is never punishment. It is an act of love. There are lessons that can only be learned through waiting. Patience cannot be developed without delay. And perseverance cannot grow without difficulty. Trust cannot mature unless there are moments when you must walk without seeing the full picture. Each day you continue believing, despite uncertainty, strengthens your faith in ways immediate answers never could. You are becoming someone who depends on God rather than circumstances. That transformation is far more valuable than any temporary comfort the world can offer. One of the greatest dangers during a waiting season is comparison. It is easy to look at someone else's success and wonder why your own breakthrough has not arrived. You may see friends getting married while you remain single, co-worker receiving promotions while you continue in the same position, or others sharing testimonies of answered prayers while your requests seem to remain unanswered. Comparison has a way of making God's timing feel unfair. But comparison ignores one important truth. Every person is walking a different journey with a different purpose. God is not writing identical stories for His children. He is writing the story that best fulfills His purpose for each life. What someone else receives today has nothing to do with what God has prepared for you tomorrow. The waiting season also teaches gratitude. When blessings come easily, people often overlook their value. But when you have waited, prayed, trusted, and remained faithful through uncertainty, your appreciation becomes much deeper. You recognize that every good gift is not something you earn solely through effort, but something God graciously provided at the right moment. Waiting transforms entitlement into thankfulness. It reminds you that blessings are treasures to steward, not possessions to take for granted. Another beautiful truth about waiting is that God is often working on multiple areas of your life at the same time. While you are focused on one prayer, He may be answering another you have not even considered. While you are asking Him to change your circumstances, He may be healing hidden wounds, restoring broken relationships, opening unexpected opportunities, or protecting you from dangers you cannot yet see. We tend to focus on one piece of the puzzle, but God sees the completed picture. His work is always greater than what our limited perspective can comprehend. There may be days when your strength feels small and your hope feels fragile. You may wonder if you can continue believing after so much waiting. Those are the moments when you must remember that your faith does not depend on how you feel. Feelings rise and fall, but God's character never changes. The same God who has been faithful throughout history remains faithful today. His promises are not weakened by the passing of time. His plans are not delayed because circumstances become difficult. What He has spoken over your life remains secure, even when the journey feels long. So do not despise the season you are in, simply because it is slower than you expected. The waiting itself is accomplishing something eternal within you. Every prayer whispered in faith, every act of obedience. When no one is watching, every decision to trust instead of complain, and every moment you choose hope over fear, is shaping you into the person God created you to become. One day you will look back and realize that the greatest gift was not merely the blessing you received at the end of the journey. The greatest gift was the person you became while you were waiting. And when God's perfect timing finally arrives, you will not only be grateful for what He has given you, you will also understand why He allowed you to wait. Fear has a way of speaking louder than faith when life becomes uncertain. That you are running out of time, that your prayers are being ignored, that your future is slipping away, and that if something does not change soon, nothing ever will. Fear thrives in unanswered questions because it feeds on what you cannot see. It fills your mind with endless what if scenarios until your heart becomes exhausted from carrying burdens you were never meant to bear. Before long, you may find yourself worrying more than praying, doubting more than believing, and trying to control every detail because uncertainty feels unbearable. Yet this is exactly where God gently speaks to your heart and says, "Relax, my child. You do not have to carry what I have already placed in my hands." Trusting God does not mean pretending that life's challenges do not exist. It does not mean ignoring difficulties or denying the emotions you genuinely feel. Trust means choosing to believe that God's wisdom is greater than your understanding, even when the road ahead remains unclear. It means acknowledging that, while you cannot predict tomorrow, God already stands in your tomorrow. Nothing catches him by surprise. No obstacle is too great for his power, and no situation is too complicated for his wisdom. What feels uncertain to you has already been seen by the one who knows the end from the beginning. Many people believe that peace comes after every problem is solved. They think that once the bills are paid, the doctor's report changes, the relationship is restored, or the opportunity finally arrives, then they will experience peace. But God's peace works differently. His peace does not depend on perfect circumstances. It flows from confidence in his presence. It is the quiet assurance that even when storms rage around you, he remains in complete control. Real peace is not the absence of trouble. It is the presence of unwavering trust in the middle of trouble. Think about how often fear pushes people into decisions they later regret. Fear says, take whatever opportunity appears because nothing better is coming. Fear says, compromise your values because waiting is too risky. Fear says, you must solve everything yourself because no one else will. When fear becomes your guide, it often leads to rushed decisions, unnecessary stress, and burdens that God never intended you to carry. Fear convinces you that immediate action is always better than patient obedience. But God calls you to something greater. He calls you to trust that obedience is never wasted, even when it seems slower than taking matters into your own hands. There is a remarkable freedom that comes when you finally release the illusion of control. The truth is that much of what causes anxiety comes from trying to manage things beyond your ability. You cannot control how quickly opportunities appear. You cannot force people to change. You cannot predict every event that tomorrow will bring. You cannot guarantee that every plan will unfold exactly as expected. Yet fear keeps convincing you that if you worry enough, think enough, or work hard enough, you can somehow secure your future. Worry promises control but only produces exhaustion. Trust, on the other hand, acknowledges that while your efforts matter, the final outcome rests safely in God's hands. Imagine a small child walking through a crowded place while holding a loving father's hand. The child does not know the route, cannot see every danger ahead, and does not understand every decision the father makes. Yet the child continues walking with confidence, not because of personal knowledge, but because of complete trust in the one leading the way. That is the kind of relationship God desires with his children. He does not ask you to understand every detail before taking the next step. He simply asks you to trust his hand when your eyes cannot yet see the destination. There will always be reasons to fear if you focus only on circumstances. The world changes constantly. Economies rise and fall. Unexpected losses happen. Plans are interrupted. Doors close. People disappoint us. Life rarely follows the script we write for ourselves. If your peace depends entirely on favorable circumstances, then your peace will constantly disappear whenever life becomes difficult. But when your confidence is rooted in God's unchanging character, circumstances lose their power to control your heart. You begin to understand that while situations may change overnight, God's faithfulness never changes. Trust also transforms the way you pray. Instead of approaching God with panic, you come before Him with expectation. Instead of believing you must persuade Him to care, you remember that He already loves you more deeply than you can imagine. Instead of demanding immediate answers, you learn to rest in the confidence that He knows exactly what you need and exactly when you need it. Prayer becomes less about trying to force God's hand and more about aligning your heart with His perfect will. Fear will still knock on the door of your mind from time to time. Doubts may still arise, and difficult days will still come. But they no longer have to rule your life. Every time fear tells you that everything is falling apart, you can remember that God is still holding everything together. Every time anxiety insists that you have been forgotten, you can remind yourself that the one who created you has never lost sight of you for even a single moment. Every time uncertainty tempts you to panic, you can choose to rest in the unshakable truth that God's plans are always higher than your fears. So if your heart feels heavy today, release what you were never designed to carry. Lay down the burden of constant worry. Stop measuring your future by today's circumstances. Trust that the God who has faithfully guided countless lives throughout history is faithfully guiding yours as well. His love has not failed you. His promises have not expired. His timing has not been delayed. As your trust grows, fear loses its grip, and in its place comes a deep, steady peace. The kind of peace that remains firm even before the breakthrough arrives, because it is anchored not in what you can see, but in the unchanging faithfulness of God. There are seasons in life when it feels as though absolutely nothing is happening. You wake up each morning, follow the same routine, offer the same prayers, and wait for the same answers. Yet, everything appears unchanged. The opportunities you hoped for have not arrived. The breakthrough you have been expecting seems delayed. The dreams that once filled your heart with excitement now feel distant, almost impossible to imagine becoming reality. During these moments, discouragement quietly begins to settle in. You may wonder if all your prayers have been in vain, or if your faith has somehow fallen short. But God invites you to see your life through a different perspective. Just because you cannot see movement does not mean nothing is moving. Some of the greatest works of God happen behind the scenes, long before they become visible to human eyes. Think about the sunrise. Before the first rays of light appear on the horizon, the earth has already been turning throughout the night. The movement never stopped, simply because darkness covered the sky. In the same way, God's work in your life does not pause simply because you cannot yet see the results. While you sleep, He continues working. While you wonder, He continues arranging circumstances. While you wait, He continues preparing opportunities that will arrive at exactly the right moment. Heaven is never inactive. God's hands are always at work, even when His work remains hidden for a season. One of the greatest mistakes people make is assuming that visible progress is the only kind of progress that exists. We naturally celebrate what we can see: a promotion, a restored relationship, a financial blessing, a healed body, or an answered prayer. But before those outward victories appear, there is often a long period of invisible preparation. Seeds grow beneath the soil long before they break through the surface. A sculptor spends countless hours shaping a masterpiece before anyone admires the finished work. An author writes chapter after chapter before the book ever reaches the hands of readers. In every meaningful accomplishment, there is hidden work before public victory. God often follows the same pattern in our lives. Perhaps, while you have been asking God to change your circumstances, He has been changing your heart. While you have been praying for new opportunities, He has been building wisdom that will help you handle those opportunities with integrity. While you have been asking Him to open doors, He has been closing the wrong ones to protect you from unnecessary pain. There are countless ways God is working that you cannot fully understand today, but will recognize when you look back. His plans are always more detailed, more loving, and more complete than anything you could arrange on your own. Sometimes breakthrough is not delayed because God is unwilling. It is delayed because several pieces must come together at the perfect moment. Consider how many lives intersect every single day. A conversation, a decision, a job opening, a friendship, a business opportunity, or an unexpected encounter can completely change the direction of your future. God sees every connection before it happens. He knows exactly which people need to cross your path, which circumstances need to align, and which lessons need to be learned before your next season begins. What appears slow from your limited perspective is actually perfect coordination from heaven's perspective. There is also a beautiful truth that many people overlook. While you are waiting for your breakthrough, someone else may be waiting to become part of the answer to your prayer. God may be preparing another person's heart, opening another door, or arranging another situation that will eventually connect with your own story. His plans often involve far more people than we realize. Because He loves every person involved, He works with perfect timing that accomplishes His purpose for everyone, not just one individual. That is why rushing ahead of Him can lead to frustration, while trusting Him allows His perfect plan to unfold naturally. Do not underestimate what God can accomplish in a single moment. A season of waiting may last months or even years, yet when His appointed time arrives, circumstances can change with remarkable speed. One conversation can open a lifelong opportunity. One phone call can answer years of prayer. One unexpected meeting can lead to a relationship that changes your future. One act of obedience can become the beginning of an entirely new chapter. When God moves, He often accomplishes more in a short time than human effort could achieve over many years. That is why waiting is never wasted when it is placed in His hands. The enemy often wants you to interpret delay as defeat. He whispers that because nothing has happened yet, nothing ever will. He encourages you to abandon hope just before the breakthrough arrives. But God's message is completely different. He reminds you that His promises are not determined by appearances. Your current circumstances do not define your future. Temporary silence does not cancel eternal purpose. Even if you cannot yet see the evidence, God is faithfully accomplishing His will according to His perfect plan. This is why perseverance matters so much. Many people stop believing only moments before they would have seen God's answer. They allow discouragement to convince them that the journey has reached a dead end, when in reality they are standing closer to their breakthrough than ever before. Faith continues walking even when the destination is hidden. Hope continues believing even when progress feels invisible. Trust continues resting because it knows that God has never failed and never will. So today, if your heart feels weary because you cannot yet see what God is doing, remember this unshakable truth. The absence of visible evidence is not the absence of divine activity. God is still opening doors you cannot yet see. He is still protecting you from dangers you may never know existed. He is still preparing blessings that are perfectly suited for your life. Every prayer you have offered has been heard. Every tear has been noticed. Every moment of faithful obedience has been seen. Your breakthrough is not a distant dream drifting farther away with time. It is already moving toward you according to God's perfect schedule. And when the appointed moment finally arrives, you will understand that every delay had a purpose. Every season of waiting carried meaning. And every step of the journey was guided by the faithful hand of a loving God who was working for you all along.